Yeah, it's significant because we've seen an upward trend in overall crime, and in 2021, that was one of our kind of all-time highs, and so to see it for increase by that by 4% over that, that is one of the significant challenges that we're facing. However, what we've also seen in 2022, we saw really in the first 5 months, that was really a huge difference compared to 2021, and that's really what drove trying to as we started to kind of get into the actual year, we were actually driving crime down, but we had really just that first 5 months really hurt us because there was such a significant difference between the year before.
Well, let's talk about the gun violence. First off, a lot of shootings and shots fired. We're talking about 700?
Over 739 if I'm right, if I'm correct.
I just want to kind of hone in on where some of this activity is happening the most. So you list some neighborhoods in there. Where are you seeing the most shots fired? Because it's more condensed. Last year it was more widespread, correct?
Yeah, so we actually have seen a significant increase in the CID area. That's been one of the biggest challenges, I think, right off the bat in 2022 when the mayor took over. It was a significant project to really address the 12th and Jackson location, as well as the 3rd and Pine location. That is also, a lot of those shootings have had some level of nexus to homelessness. And we've really put a lot of effort in making sure that we try to, address all of those issues and concerns in the community. And there's just significant challenges because there's a lot of social issues that we're facing: homelessness, behavioral crisis, and that's one of the things that I've been, really laser focused on trying to drive down. But when you look at other parts of the city, we look at Lake City, we look at Northgate, we look at Aurora, we look at Westwood Village and South Park. We look at down and around the Safeway in the Rainier Valley area, Brighton Place. These are all areas that have seen and continue to see significant shootings that are occurring in those areas. And so we are really trying to make sure that we have a good plan in place. In the last 4 months, we've actually seen that violent crime actually start to go in a better trend. Doesn't mean that we don't have any issues. It means that we're seeing more progress, but we still have a lot of things that we need to be addressing.
Is there any reasoning here as to why 2021 had kind of shots fired events happening everywhere, it's almost, and for 2022 it's just really, really focused and centralized? Do you have any reasons or answers?
Because about 16% of our shootings actually had a homeless nexus. So you're looking at significant shootings in and around encampments. And so that actually is a lot more focused in specific areas. So like the CID, you look at Ethan King, you look at 12th and Jackson, 10th and Dearborn. These are all locations that have had significant encampment issues. But those are things that we're also trying to, as a city, trying to make sure that we address. And that is part of that unified care team work. And that's also been part of being able to also work with community partners on how we actually address overall shootings as well. So when we have a shooting, it's also making sure that we're utilizing their expertise to helpfully make a good impact in reducing the retaliatory shootings that might occur as well.
You talked about the homeless nexus and something like a 16% number there. Just to be clear, the shootings that are happening at encampments or near encampments, are we thinking that the people who are dealing with homelessness are committing these acts, or are those areas drawing the violence in? Do we know more?
It's actually kind of a mixture of stuff. So we do know that in some of the encampments there is sometimes criminal activity that's occurring because our people are being targeted because of the homeless encampments. Sometimes it's whether it's drug trade, sometimes it's a level of not human trafficking, but property trafficking, trafficking of property, stolen goods, and then also people are bringing guns, and we're seeing more guns than we've ever had. And last year, even though we've significantly down in staffing, it's our second highest year in the recovery of guns at 1349, and so that's a great work by our officers. But that is also one of the biggest challenges that I think we face is just how many guns are out on the street.
Talk for me about Northgate, because I see that it's appeared on this list in a couple ways. One, it's being one of the neighborhoods, Northgate North, for shootings and shots fired, but it's also number 2 on your list for repeat CAD. So talk about just what is going on in Northgate. Why is that such a busy area?
There's actually some encampments that are in and around north of Northgate that have actually had some of the shots fired. We've also seen just motor vehicle theft because it's a shopping district. So there's a variety of different crime that we're seeing, just Northgate being busy. It's also an area where it's actually being revitalized. So the shopping mall has been kind of shut down, or it's kind of like half being operated. And so the bigger that we can get more people into that area and doing shopping and populating that area, and that's one of the significant challenges in all of our parts of our city. In the downtown, we need people back into using a lot of businesses, because the more the businesses that are boarded up, the more businesses that are not being utilized. That's where we actually start to see some of that criminal activity really build itself up.
Talking about the victims of some of this gun violence, I think we have 52 homicides, but a lot more people injured, hurt. Who's being impacted the most by this when you break it down by demographic?
We've seen, when you look at population, African American are impacted the most, based on population data, and that's continuously been one of the challenges that we face, not just for last year or the year before. It's been for over a decade, since I've been doing police work, and so we really need to make sure that we're providing a lot of services. When you look at the age demographics, when it comes to homicides, you're looking at that 20 to 34 range, which is making sure that people have those resources as they transition out of high school. Are they do they have the ability to have levels of success later in life? And so we have to make sure that as a city that we're helping out, making sure people have those opportunities for hope. But when you look at actually people that are being shot and impacted that are not necessarily homicides, demographics do change, and it's actually significant when it comes to the older, like 35, I think, to 49, if I'm correct, where you actually see more people, white, typically older, and that's where you also see some of those homeless encampment population data. And that doesn't mean it's perfect, but that is where you start to see a different demographic, and that's some of the challenges that we're facing, and just dealing with all of the social issues that we're facing.
Response times. So you have the average in there in the median. The average 10 minutes or so, median 7. Why does the median the choice that you want to go with when you reference that in the report?
Because one of the things is when people call 911, we want to be there as quick as possible. Seconds matter, especially in many of those situations. If it's a shooting, it could be a life or death situation where we have to put a tourniquet on somebody or a chest seal on somebody to try and save their life before fire can come in and do their work. And so it's very, very important for us to be able to respond quickly. Same is similar to the Ingram shooting. We were there within 4 minutes, and it's really important. That's where you're trying to make sure you're rendering an area safe. You want to get fire into those types of situations so they can treat victims. And so, for us, that's our marker, is really trying to get under 7 minutes. That is what we want, because when somebody calls, they need that police response as quickly as possible.
So how do you feel like you have all the data here? So what are your goals for response times for 2023?
So my goal is really to try and get it as close as I can, or under 7 minutes. That's been one of the ultimate goals that we've had. Typically, that with the staffing that we have, I thought maybe this might not be achievable, but we've really been focused on making sure we put officers in the right area. So if there are shootings in and around, say, CID, and you have a good, significant emphasis patrols in and around that area, officers are going to get there quickly. And so that actually helps us drive down some of those response times, making sure the officers are in the right locations. And so for us, I'm hoping to get under 7 minutes, but it's also making sure that we hire good officers that are going to come out and do the work and want to make sure that the city is safe and serve our community. And I need more officers, and that'll also help drive down to that 7 minute response time as well.
Where are you with staffing? What are the current vacancies?
Yeah, so we have about 375 officers that we need to fill this department, and that has really been so crucial, because some people will say, like, you're seeing good trends, but the problem is officers are working double shifts. They're working extra to try and make sure that they provide the best in public safety. And so after a while, we don't want them burned out. We want to make sure that our officers are healthy, and so we want to make sure that we're getting officers, fresh officers, to be able to be trained. And we're not going to lower our standards, and so it's going to take time. We want to make sure that we're bringing in the right officer And there's many people that have applied for the job, but we've had to say no because they're not the right fit. And so it's so important that we get good officers. So if you know of officers, if people are wanting to look at the Seattle Police Department, we're hiring, but we also want to make sure we're hiring the right officer.
I had a couple more questions for you, but
Please.
on this report, I want you to tell me what is the biggest takeaway for you from this data?
Every day I actually look at the data. And so, when I drive into work, I actually go through 12th and Jackson, I go through 3rd and Pine. So I'm routinely seeing what it looks like. And then I'm actually going to the data and I want to see, where we're at, how does it look when it comes to the data analytics side of it. And then I'm also getting regular updates from our staff, our command staff, to also know, like, what are we doing? Are we putting operations in place? Are we putting emphasis in specific areas? We've been running a lot of stuff on retail theft operations. We've been doing stuff on auto thefts because we know that these are significant challenges for many of the small businesses, many of the businesses that have been impacted by COVID and the pandemic. But it's also, making sure that we're also deploying our resources to the areas of violent crimes and hotspots. And so there's not much shock to me on this. However, I am seeing a good trend in quarter 4, where we're actually seeing a reduction in violent crime. And part of it is, I want to make sure that we're checking everything, that we don't want to claim a victory, because I think we're trending in the right direction. But I think that there's still a lot of work still to be done. And I'm hearing from community members feeling like things are feeling a lot safer, but they also know that there's still a lot of work to be done. And so, there's still challenges in dealing with people in behavioral crisis. There's still challenges with homelessness, but we're seeing, we still have challenges of robberies. As the city opens up, nightlife happens where, we have to pay attention to, kind of sexual offenses, and we have to pay attention to, nightlife shootings, and we have to pay attention to all aspects as the city opens up. And so we want to make sure that, again, that, we have a good amount of personnel and that we're deploying them in the right place.
For more local news coverage, live and on demand, watch King 5 Plus. Download free on Roku and Fire TV.